Order and would everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
For training.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business this evening is to approve or amend the agenda. All commission members have received a copy of tonight's agenda. The agenda for this evening's meeting includes one item on the consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes for the March 21st Planning Commission meeting and training session. And we have one item under general business, which is a concept plan review for the Tradition Planned Unit Development. Do any of the commission members wish to add or amend anything on tonight's agenda? If no, can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Approve tonight's agenda.
I have a motion from Commissioner Theberath. Do I have a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right. One second here, sorry. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are those considered routine or non-controversial and are included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a planning commission member is specifically asked to have an item removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, second, and vote. Any item removed from the consent agenda will be placed at the end of general business. On tonight's agenda, as I mentioned, we've got just the planning commission meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Theberath. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right. Up next on the agenda, we would normally have time for public hearings as there are none scheduled. We will not have public hearings this evening and we will move to general business. Tonight, we have the Tradition Planned Unit Development Concept Plan for review. The packet that is available online included a memo from planner Claire Strickler and PDFs of slides from the developer. I'd like to ask staff to go ahead and walk through some opening remarks about this plan.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Olson. Good evening, Planning Commission. As the chair said, I'm Claire Stickler. I'm the consulting planner with the City of Credit River. Prepared the staff memo, have met with the developer and other members of city staff throughout this process for pre-development meetings. The one thing that I realized I neglected to add in the staff report was a little bit more about what a planned unit development is. So I just kind of wanted to briefly touch on that before Todd goes through his presentation about the concept this evening. Really, the planned unit development is an overlay from the existing underlying zoning districts. Proposed in this development would be R1 and R2. All of that was, as mentioned in the report, would have to be rezoned regardless. So the PUD overlay allows some of that creativity within the streetscapes, the width, the lot sizes, minimum requirements for open space, conservation, things like that. Specifically from the proposed concept that we've seen this evening, lot size minimum is something that would be deviated from the standard zoning standards. The lot widths and the street widths, the standard street width for a local road is 66 feet. I think throughout this, we see some 50 in some of the more concentrated home areas, the less are what would be more arterial, higher traveled to access out to the roads. And then this property is existing on 185th and Judicial Way. There's one home currently there. It's 98-ish, a little higher acreage. Currently under a purchase agreement, the two parcels in front of it that I think equal about 16 acres are not currently part of this, although they are ghost platted through the developer's concepts, which would lead out to this total development being about 3 units per acre. The northeast property line abuts the regional park, and they are proposing some trails that keep the existing wetlands throughout it that would then connect to that area, as well as some of the trails along Judicial Way that the city of Lakeville has and maintains, as well as a sanitary sewer and water extension in collaboration with the city of Lakeville that the city of Lakeville's engineer did do a report for. Has come that, you know, it is feasible for 300-ish units to connect to the sewer. Staff has met with the Metropolitan Council as well to kind of get their initial steps and feedback. They're going to have to do their own kind of review and study, but that is in the works as we are working through this process with the developer. So unless you have any specific questions for me, I'm going to let Todd take over and run through his concept narrative.
All right. Mr. Stutz, thank you. Would you please just push the button to turn the microphone on?
Green button, if it turns green.
It does.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
We got that figured out. Good evening. I'm Todd Stutz, Vice President of Land Development for Tradition Development. Also with me this evening is Patrick Rossi. He's a project manager also for Tradition Development. Other members of our team. I don't know if you're gonna do that. Okay, awesome. Yep. Thank you. Should I just do beep like the old? We're talking this like the film strip, no one knows what a film strip is other than probably me. Old enough. Also members of our team are Jake Ennebeck. He's a resident of Credit River at Legends. He's the president and CEO of Tradition Companies. Also part of the team is Clark Wickland, and Clark's our engineer, he's a VP of Land Development with Alliant Engineering. And they've been involved with this since the beginning of this process. I do have to remind everyone, this is a concept plan, right? And so we fully expect the plans you see today will be different ultimately when we come back actually with a request for actual PUD. So, and we'll work further with staff. We've spent some real quality time with them so far, but like I said, this is a PUD. This is an opportunity for us to receive feedback from the commission with regards to where they see the plan and what their feedback might be that can improve upon the plan. Okay. The Tradition organization is involved in land development, financial services, and home building. I put this slide up here only. We were also the most recent development in the city of Credit River that we did was Legends Golf Club. We were the developer. We're one of the owners of that, as well as managers of Legends Club. Our two principals, fourth generation and third generation, actually live in the Legends. So they have a very interesting perspective on what happens on this site. So the property, which I think everyone knows by now, is on the northwest corner of the intersection of 185th Street and Judicial Road. It consists of 4 parcels, and those four parcels are owned by 2 entities, one being the Bartels, which is 98.52 acres, which is the majority of the site. And in addition to that, we have also included the 16.99 acres owned by the Conley family, who presently are not interested in selling the property, but we've shown it as a ghost plat, which is very normal for cities to look at what happens if this property is developed in the future, so that there's connections made for streets, there's connections made for utilities. So that site could develop it at some point. I thought it was important to sort of start out with sort of where we started as far as a mission is concerned. Our mission on this particular site really is taking what we've done on other similar projects. Spirit of Brandon Farms in Lakeville is a project that we're very proud of. That's where actually physically where our offices are at. And we're just towards the end of completing that project. It's made up of about 1,400 housing units as well as commercial. And so that's really what we looked at as far as serving sort of where we start. And the mission behind both Cobblestone, which is on this, in Apple Valley, as well as Spirit of Brandon Farm, was to provide distinctive neighborhoods of homes of all different sizes and types, which respond to a variety of lifestyles. And they also were subject to very stringent requirements relative to architecture. I think we look at this process as in terms of what the site plan and how the land might be laid out, but we feel an equal part of that is how the architecture will look and what controls we have over the architecture that ultimately happens on that land, which are actually what people really see and they feel. Okay. We also, in those developments, as one of our missions, was to provide extensive connected open space which preserves, enhances the existing wetlands, ponds, and wooded areas, all of which exist on this site. Provide a distinctive neighborhood association amenity area and connected trail system, which is again something that we've incorporated into this plan. And then provide a street system designed to calm traffic and encourage neighboring through the use of boulevard trees, landscaping, and architectural elements. And as part of the PUD process, we will develop a design standard or template for streets, how those streets might look in terms of boulevards, how those streets might be as far as streetscape is concerned. And so that also will be part of the actual PUD process so we can actually see that. I thought it was important, is that we actually give an opportunity to look at what Spirit of Brandon Farms is in Lakeville. I'm not sure if everyone's ever been there, but a lot of the elements I just went through have been incorporated in that development and really serve as, I think, a template for what we're looking at doing here on this project. So the one thing I want you to look at in terms of the street sections, what the streets look like. This is what we're proposing here, what the architectural variety looks like, what the open spaces look like, how it's connected, what amenity spaces look at like. So with that, I'll just let you roll the film here. There's actually music. We don't have a barn here, but we definitely are going to build some sort of community space. But obviously there's much like on this site, we actually have wetlands and ponds. Those will have trails systems that will connect the neighborhood together. This is a section which is roughly an 80-foot wide right of way, which has boulevards down the center. This is all about calming traffic, right? Making speeds slower, making a very pedestrian friendly environment. We have sidewalks on both sides. We're looking at doing that in the boulevard area on this side. This would be very similar to what we'll look at as far as the east-west boulevard. This is a 52-foot right of way street section. Again, sidewalks on both sides. You can see the relationships of the houses to the other houses. And what the important thing is what's the front door to the front door across the street. So in terms of where children can play, they can interconnect with other children, family members, the whole issue of neighboring, which we feel is important. This is a 28-foot wide street, which allows parking on one side. But again, a 52-foot right of way, trees in the boulevard. There are some cities that don't allow you to put trees in the boulevard. We think it's really important to the overall environment we're trying to create. And so again, this is a 52-foot right of way, 28-foot wide street. And as again, you can see a variety of architecture. It's all about taming the garage. There is no garage forward architecture that would be allowed. The garage would have to be at least 2 feet back from the front of a porch. Again, it's important, we think, to create in the overall streetscape to do that. And again, here's another boulevard example. We have a number of people that live in their second and third home within Spirit of Brandon Farms. For a number of years, this was the top selling development, the top development. And so we're very proud of it. It has a lot of elements that you don't see in a normal or typical neighborhood or subdivision. And again, it's that combination of sort of the site planning, sort of how the land's developed, but then also the architecture, and those sort of go hand in hand. So you have an exhibit within your folder there as part of the PowerPoint presentation. And I'll just go through the existing conditions really to begin with. So it's really taking that template and mission of what we've done in other communities and combining it with the existing conditions that exist on this particular property. Our main focus was the 98.52 acres, which is controlled by the Bartels, which we have under purchase agreement. The majority of the property is currently farmed. There are 4 designated wetlands on the property. One is a designated wetland also on the Conley property. There is a significant topography on the property. If you go from the entrance on Judicial Road to where the existing Bartel home is on the top is roughly 68 feet difference in elevation. So that also has to be incorporated in the plan, but it provides great opportunities for sort of visual interest, relief. It's very important, I think, the overall plan. There is 2 existing homes, one that's on the Bartels, as I mentioned, and the one on the Conley property. On the Conley property, also, there is a cell tower on the sort of western portion of the property along 185th, which you can see. There are existing trees. There are 4 designated wetlands on the property. Those existing trees will be remain. There also are existing trees in the northwest corner of the property, which will be developing. There's roughly about 8.5 acres of trees on the property. We'll be saving roughly 4.5 acres of those trees. As part of the next process here, we need to do a wetland delineation, which has not yet been done. We're relying upon basically the National Wetland Inventory for what we're showing here. There may be a wetland that's probably more in the center of the property that we'll have to work around that we haven't currently taken into consideration. We also do a tree survey of all the property to make sure that there are any significant trees that we try to work around the best that we can. Okay. Main access to the property currently is on what we align with Justice Way on the other side of Judicial Road. That is the current access for the Bartels. As we get into our concept plan, you'll see that we pretty much have made that road same alignment for our main boulevard that will come into the property. So it is expected that also that Judicial Way as part of our overall development will have to be upgraded. We're currently planning on the western half being turned into what we'll call an urban section, so we'll have a curb on it. The eastern half was done some years ago. There may be some repairs or something that need to be done to that, but that's what we're looking at in terms of upgrading. Judicial Road will have to be built all the way along what would be our eastern property line. The eastern half of the northern property, as mentioned by Claire, does adjoin Murphy Hannerhan Park Reserve. The good news about that is we have a sort of ability to naturally extend that park and make connections to it, which we're really interested in doing to enhance our property as well. So one of the things that we started out with, and we do also own property on 185th to the farther to the, we'll call it to the east in the city of Lakeville. So when we looked at this whole overall area, we looked at this site and we said, is there potential for this property? Because we had someone that was wanting to sell their property. Is there potential to extend sewer and water to that property? So in conversations with the city of Lakeville, they had SEH prepare a study, which studied the direction of the city of Lakeville, the potential to provide water and sewer service to the Bartels property and the Conley property. And that property is based upon the current PUD concept plan being basically roughly 300 homes. Those reports came back and they indicated that there's 2 locations where connection is possible, where there's adequate capacity within the existing lines to serve this property. And those are shown on red on that existing existing conditions map here on the northern portion and here on the southern portion.
Okay.
There's ability to connect with a very short distance. Basically, the connections are within Judicial Road. So I highlighted this as part of the presentation, indicating that we believe the extension of water and sanitary sewer from Lakeville is consistent with the City of Credit River Comp Plan, which supports the collaboration with other jurisdictions to provide services and manage growth by utilizing available infrastructure to promote fiscal responsible growth. And so as part of your current comp plan and the sanitary sewer plan, that's part of that, it shows eventual connection to a interceptor or line that's up in the eastern part of Savage, and that coming down basically along the western side of the park and all the way down to 175th and then over and then down to this property at some point. That's a long ways to go. That's a very expensive connection to be made at some point. And so given the fact that there's a pipe in the ground to be able to connect to it right in basically Judicial Road, it's very cost effective to do that at this point. Okay. We can probably just go to the proposed concept plan. So our proposed Highlands PUD concept plan proposes 3 low-density neighborhoods consisting of 218 single-family homes on the Bartel property, which actually is on a density basis is less than 3 units per acre, which is really considered to be low density. Maybe not in Credit River, but it's considered to be low density. Additionally, the plan does illustrate on the Ghost Plat part on the Conley property an additional 110 attached units. So a total of 328 units is currently shown by the plan, of which there's 218, which are basically in 3 sort of separate and distinct neighborhoods on our plan. And so we just go forward to the, not much people can see that, but anyway. We talked about proposed streetscape design and standards, which are important to us. I know this will be a point of conversation when it comes to right-of-way widths, street widths, all of that. But what we're taking, what we feel has been successful, especially specifically in Spirit of Brandon Farms and Cobblestone in terms of right-of-ways and street widths. And so we're trying to look at that, and we'll have a long conversation, I'm sure, with this consulting engineer, the city staff, as well as city planner. And so the primary entrance to the development will be from Judicial Road, as I mentioned. It'll be approximately in the same location that the Bartels currently access their home. And that is basically aligns with Justice Way. There also will be a secondary entrance that we're looking at doing. Is a curb cut approximately in this location we're showing, which is on the southern portion of the site, which will be a secondary entrance on the 185th, and that'll be a right in and right out only. Okay. So on the issue of right-of-way widths, we are showing within all the neighborhoods. We talked about the 3 separate neighborhoods, basically a 28-foot wide street within a 52-foot right-of-way. We're showing boulevard. And the boulevard is sort of the east-west road, which is in the center of the site, extended from Judicial Road, and I assume it's going to be called Justice Way. Will be a boulevard, and that boulevard is within a 60-foot right-of-way, and again would be a 28-foot wide street. And we're proposing to show on that street sidewalks on both sides within the neighborhoods at this point, sidewalk on one side only. Okay. And I indicated before, there'll be a specific set of streetscape design and standards will be incorporated into the PUD, which you'll have an opportunity to review. One of the things that came out of our meetings with the staff was connections to the Asselford property, which is not, there's no development proposal for that. No one's even discussed that at all. No one's had any contact with that property owner, but the staff did ask us to show some connection to that. So again, in the future, will that be in 2040, 2000, who knows, right? But so we did show a connection down along 185th that would connect that property. It'd be platted as a right of way at this point. And then at some point, the street might be extended. So, but we did provide for an opportunity to do that. And again, this is a concept plan, so it definitely will change. So presidential, so it's part of the proposed PUD concept plan, obviously, is the residential neighborhood design and home collections. And that's obviously important to us. And as we talked about, there is a east-west main boulevard, sort of separates the site north and south. That boulevard in a number of locations will have medians in it and landscaping. To the north of the primary entrance, when we come in off of Judicial Road, will be what we call our tradition collection neighborhood. There'll be 101 single-family homes of 76-foot wide lots and 130-foot deep lots. This will be sort of the custom area, the neighborhood. And when I showed an earlier slide, it showed we're also in the home building business. It is expected that Robert Thomas Homes will build majority of homes on the property. In the case of the tradition collection or the custom area, those will be built also by other local builders that we choose that can fit within the architectural guidelines that we set up. Okay. So that's that area. On the when you travel west on the main boulevard, the first neighborhood that you'll encounter is the Villa neighborhood, which is on the south side of the road. That Villa neighborhood has 40 single-family villa homes, which are single-level homes, with a minimum lot size of 53 and 57 feet wide. They're 129, 146 feet deep. This would be an association maintained neighborhood. And we'll get into maybe the product in just a few seconds. And then if you travel farther to the west, again, on the south side of the main east-west boulevard, you'll encounter our Heritage Collection neighborhood. That Heritage Collection neighborhood has 76 single-family homes, a minimum lot size of 64 feet wide and 125 foot deep lots. The existing home is, that the Bartels occupy is intended to remain on the property, and will, it's basically a 0.68 acre lot that they'll retain. Okay. So I know this isn't necessarily a land use decision, but everyone felt it was important to show the price range and the price points of these homes. So the Tradition Collection, which again is on the north side, which is more of a custom home, those square footages will range from about 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, starting about 850,000 to 1,500,000. I will say those aren't today's numbers, but my expectation those would be actually higher when we actually develop here. The Villa Collection, which is association maintained area, those roughly about 1,300 to 1,850 square feet. They will have lower levels, so you can almost double those square footage in terms of finished homes square footage. That's 550 to 850. Again, the target market is moved down empty nesters. And then also Heritage Collection, which are again going traveling farther down the boulevard. Those are basically 2,500 to 3,500 square feet, about 650,000 to $1 million in price. The target market for those are first time move up buyers. So that's generally, we're looking at. It's not, I would not consider this to be an affordable community, but it is something that we feel that there is a niche in Credit River that we can fill. I have received contacts from people that have an interest in Credit River in the area. There are people that just don't want 5-acre lots or 10-acre lots. I mean, there are people, right? So, and so these provide opportunities, especially with people that, don't want a large lot. So that's sort of where this product fits in. And again, not intended to be high prices, or low prices, I should say. Proposed PUD concept plan. Again, these are just some examples that provide some other examples of homes that we've built. It's important, I think, for people to understand. Just because the lot may be smaller than what people are used to, it doesn't mean the house is smaller. It doesn't mean the house is less expensive. So these are 3 examples of homes that we've built here. Tradition Collection on the left, the top is Heritage Collection, and then below that would be the Villa Collection. So again, I talk about the connection between how the site's actually developed and the architecture. Within, the PUD, we would be approving architectural standards and, talking about garage designs and taming the garage, setting back of the garage from the front of the porch. We talked about 4-sided design. Very often when people drive past a community, all they see is the rears of homes. It's as important to pay attention to the rear of homes as the front of the home. And so, all the windows will be wrapped, all the materials that are used on the front will be also used on the rear. Materials, all materials will be either fiber cement or engineered wood products. We will not allow vinyl siding or aluminum siding. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but in keeping with the architecture I think we're trying to accomplish, we'll be requiring those materials. Streetscape variety, again, anti-monotony is which is important to us. You don't have the same house back next to the same house next to the same house. And so not only in terms of architectural style, but also color. Fencing, there will be no privacy fences allowed within the community. Again, these are details, but I think are important to overall what we're trying to accomplish. You can have a low fence, 4 feet high, but no privacy fences. This is all about neighboring and people being connected, not creating little refuges in the backyards of homes. In the landscaping planting, every home will have required to have significant amount of landscaping on the front end. We'll do that sometime later. So the repackage is required that people install right away. So we go on the next one. Again, this is shown by the illustrative site plan, but again, the whole issue of proposed open space design and neighborhood connections. So there's 4 designated wetlands, as I mentioned, as part of the existing conditions. Those will all be preserved as 3.15 acres. In addition, there are 3 additional large open spaces. So Those additional open spaces included the amenity area, which is in the center. And then in addition to that, the land that's on the northern side of the site, which is will be added to Murphy Hanahan Park. If you take all those areas and combine those areas, not including the wetlands, there's 19.03 acres of the 98 acres that's designated open space. And again, if you add the 3.15 to that, you end up with about 24% of the site that's set aside just for open space and wetlands. Okay. You know, and that's a trade-off. It's a trade-off between smaller lots allow us to set more open space aside, which is the benefit of the whole overall community, not just to the specific owners. Okay. There is a trail that will connect. And again, the earlier sort of example that we gave for Spirit, there will be a trail connection that will go around the wetland on the south side of the East-West Boulevard that will go through the amenity area, and then will connect then to Murphy Hanahan Park. And that trail connection will be, I think, important to the overall sort of people moving around. And that's in addition to the sidewalks will be constructed as part of the overall community. There's currently a trail on the south side. And so at some point, if Conley's properties develop, we will connect that. The one thing that's not part of the PowerPoint presentation is our conversation about, ultimately what's the future plans of connections to Murphy Hanahan Park, and then also potentially Ritter Farm in the city of Lakeville. We own some of that property along 185th. And so we've committed to the city of Lakeville will provide a trail connection through that at some point when that property is developed. And then how do you cross 185th? And so there's been conversations about whether or not there's a tunnel or a bridge or some connection that would go over 185th. And we've contemplated as part of our development plan. In addition to that, I also have to mention that, we expect that there'll be some signalization required. It's probably required now with even out the development, but on Judicial Road and 185th. And so that's also we've contemplated as part of our development. So we can just probably go forward. We haven't fully defined, again, we're at concept plan stage, what the amenity area will look like and what the clubhouse ultimately will look like. This is just an example that we're using. It'll be a clubhouse. It'll have exercise facilities, meeting rooms, pool facility, again, all for the benefit of the neighborhood itself. So that will define at some point what that will look like. But there's roughly a little over 4 acres in the center that's set aside specifically for amenity like this. We can probably maybe we should just go forward here just a few slides. So let's talk about the current, okay. Current zoning in 2024 comprehensive plan and land use and development staging, actually should say 2040. But the existing zone currently on the property, this is today, is UER, which is Urban Expansion Reserve District, which allows for 1 dwelling unit per 40 acres. Along with that too is the 2040 comprehensive plan, land use for urban expansion area. Again, for the comp plan, the existing zoning is the same as basically the comp plans, 1 dwelling unit per 40 acres. The 2040 comp plan build out land use, and that's within the comp plan document. And it talks about, but what will the property ultimately build out to be? And so the Bartels property is currently shown as being guided low density, which again is 2 to 6 units per acre, R1 zoning, and medium density residential, which is 6 to 12 units per acre. So that within the comp plan, there's a document that says if ultimately when this builds out, this is what this property should build out at density. And then in addition to that, the Conley property shows as medium density, which again is 6 to 12 units per acre as a medium density property. The 2040 comp plan development staging map shows post 2024. 2040, sorry, urban expansion reserve. And so, yes, as part of the current comp plan, this is showing basically post 2040. But our argument is that when the comp plan was prepared, no one made any mistakes, did not contemplate that there was an economically feasible method to sewer this and put sewer and water to this property, which maybe in the long term will save the city a lot of money because otherwise you have to drag it all the way down from Savage, which is extremely expensive. So the next one is Yeah, development proposed 2040 comprehensive plan zoning and staging requested amendments. And so this is what we'd be requesting ultimately of the staff. And ultimately of the commission and the council. We would request that the 2040 comprehensive plan and zoning be changed from urban expansion reserve, low density to R1 zoning, which again is 2 to 6 units per acre. And the 2040 comprehensive plan and zoning would we request also change from urban expansion reserve to medium density residential for the Conley property. Again, that would be R2, which would be 6 to 12 units per acre. And that's again ghost platted at this stage. And the 2040 concept plan development staging requests would change from post 2040, which is regarding the sewer, to current low density, medium density residential. And then our zoning requests would include not only the zoning request, but also would be that there would be an overlay zoning district, which is, you know, your ordinance would require for a PUD. Okay, so that would lay on top of everything. Okay. We talked about densities. And for the purposes of densities, we've included not only the 98.52 acre Bartels property, but also the ghost plat on the 16.99 acre Conley property. And so if you look at the net density, there's 115.51. Take off the wetlands and the open space gives you 103.68 acres, 328 units, which is 3.16 units per acre. We would expect that number probably will go down from that. But again, this is a concept. It'll probably go down to that. We would expect it to be somewhere around 3, but maybe under 3. On a gross density basis for the entire site, we're at 2.84 units per acre right now. So again, it's considered to be low density. We'll talk about phasing. We generally we expect phasing to really occur from the east to the west, generally, except for the main boulevard, which will be constructed right away to provide access to Bartels. And we expect the development completed in 2 phases, starting in late fall 2024. Might be optimistic, but that's what we're starting in terms of starting. And home construction to be completed, you know, basically within 6 years in terms of build out. So we started sort of with what the mission we had for other communities, which we feel serve as a template for this property. I will say that, you know, we sort of check these things in terms of our development of our PUD concept plan for this property. We're providing a variety of housing types, which we'll call considered life cycle housing. We're requiring home and landscaping design quality standards and guidelines. We will have streetscape design and standards designed to calm traffic, encourage neighboring. We'll have extensive common area landscaping and monumentation. We'll have neighborhood amenities included in the central association amenity area, which will be, you know, common our clubhouse, pool, other amenities. There will be a linear trail system which will connect all the amenities within the community. And there'll be a dedication of 19.03 acres of open space on the property. And then there'll be in addition to that 3.15 acres of prefers natural wetland areas. So again, represents about 25% of the total acreage will be set aside as open space. And that does not include right away, that does not include the open space around a person's home. So we appreciate your consideration. We've enjoyed our relationship and working with staff so far. And so we look forward to advancing this based upon your feedback. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, just as a reminder that this is not technically a public hearing this evening. This is an opportunity for the developer to gather some information, to hear questions that the commissioners have, and there'll be opportunities along the way for questions from the public and public comment. So from that perspective, at this time, are there any clarifying comments that staff want to offer?
Not at this time.
All right.
Questions.
All right. Commission members, do you have questions that you wish to ask? I have a list, but I would like to see if anyone else would like to go first.
I do. Go ahead.
I'm not sure what's on.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple questions. Like, so 300 units, that's significant development, obviously. How many units does Credit River currently have? So how much are we adding to the city with one neighborhood here, I guess? Is that? 1,800, okay, so we're at another, yeah, pretty significant, okay, another sixth, okay. Is there rules of thumb when you add 300 units to a community? What does that do for, requirements, what would you anticipate needing for, would follow that, I guess, gas stations, is that gonna generate necessitate another need for a school? I know it's not the developer's job to do that, but I'm just trying to get us understanding of what this would add to the community or force upon the community, I guess. Does anyone have a thought on that?
I mean, so we did request, for the city, for a financial impact analysis by Ellers, which we did receive, I think, this morning, like, pretty last minute. That didn't really go into amenities of sorts that you were referring to, but did come back with that the overall increase in the property tax base with this development would be about 17%. And yeah, it would be a benefit of 17%. And that there would be additional revenue that would come with building permit fees and construction fees and things like that to a number. So we certainly can get that out to the commission after we received it after packets were submitted. So the city has started those steps on that financial side, but not really in the amenities side.
Okay, that's fair. Does the you said it's the sewers and water system should have capacity. Does that mean it would fully, maybe you don't know yet, but that fully use the capacity of those pipes? So it would then to the west, we would not have that capacity, or to the south?
So, okay,
Take it away.
Chair, Commissioner. Yeah, as the study that was completed by SEH, which was done again on behalf of the city of Lakeville, it indicated there was capacity to serve 300 units, and that's all there was capacity to serve. There isn't additional capacity to serve any more than that, from our understanding. The question was asked, because I think it's a reasonable question, is ever going to have this type of development happening up and down the border with the city of Lakeville? Again, the staff's response from Lakeville on that was, we're not aware of any situation that exists like this, where, there's a pipe in the ground that exists and has capacity in it to serve a development of this. And so to think that, and that, I think that's a reasonable question. So we don't see this being able to serve anything to the west. We don't see this in the south, or obviously north is a park. So again, this is like one opportunity probably that exists for this type of development.
Okay, but the city would have to factor that in, obviously, not knowing it's something will continue to develop and develop. That how do we incorporate the cost of? I mean, to me, it wouldn't be fair that one development just gets it for free to hook up, or is significantly discounted because it's sitting there, knowing you're forcing the cost onto the next development at full cost, possibly.
To be clear, we're not getting it for free.
I understand.
Okay, we're having to pay the city of Lakeville or Credit River, depending upon how a joint powers agreement is negotiated. But we're not getting it for free.
Sure. There's
a cost of the pipe that goes connecting to it, but then also the ongoing maintenance of the facility that's put within the development. So, and on the school district question, I mean, I know that at least I've been told, and I don't know, we haven't verified this, but there exists they want students within the Lakeville School District.
Sure.
And that this would contribute to that. So I assume that they would be in favor of this. And again, based upon the study that was. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. It's our understanding that the school district has capacity within their existing schools to accommodate this development.
Yeah. Not in Orchard Lake. Orchard Lake wouldn't,
Okay.
They just opened a new school this year. It'll be put in staff. I live in that school district with 4 kids, trust me, they don't.
All right.
Okay.
I appreciate the interest at this time. Let's hold on to some of those questions for the next opportunity with a public hearing.
Yeah.
But please.
We will verify the school district. Again, this is what I have been told, so I will verify that. And so thank you.
Are there other questions that commission members have this evening?
Quick question with the water and sewer, is that going to be administered by Lakeville or by Credit River? Like the billing for water and sewer, is that something that we would handle? Maybe we handle the billings for that?
That's gonna come out of the joint powers agreement.
That's a
which is-
difference, that'd be the joint.
Yeah.
Okay.
We, at this time, we don't know that, and there's been initial conversations with both city staffs to start those, but no type of negotiation or anything like that has been drawn up, as we're still in the concept. Yeah.
Do you know, has there been a traffic study done at all? For going on to 185th?
Yeah, the one thing that we believe it'll be required at a minimum is probably a traffic study. We do know that 185th and Judicial Road probably already meets warrants for a signal on that intersection. But there will be probably at a minimum a traffic study required by the city, is our understanding. And so, yeah, and so that'll identify things, but I think you can probably assume that there'll be a signal of some signal or roundabout, 185th and Judicial Road.
Right, do other commission members have questions?
Just one quick question, just kind of my understanding with the P and V overlay. Because I know with R1 and R2 designations, there are minimums of like 80 foot and 65 foot for, and if it's R1 and R2. And then I guess I'm looking at their lot breakdown with with sort of 76 and 64. And then there was some sort of comment that it'd be in compliance. Is that because of the PUD overlay that allows some discretion with that then?
Yeah, exactly. So the way that your PUD ordinance is written, it's in compliance should the city find the PUD should approve or work through the PUD. The language essentially says any of the design standards that are differentiated from the underlying district is allowed with approval and review of the commission and city council. So just like that road width, the lot sizes, all of that is if the city says it's okay, essentially, that's the PUD kind of clause of it. I mean, the developer can design it and lay it out, but the city gets the final say on it. And that is applicable, and there are standards in the PUD, there's like, I think 6 standards as what those have to kind of meet the intent of, with like efficiency, value, and sensitivity. There's more words in that section, but that would be something we absolutely get into previous, before we get a.
That's a little bit down the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we can probably start talking about and working through on the planning commission, just to kind of bring everybody up to speed on a PUD. But yes, that's kind of where the overlay comes in. If they were just to do this as an R1 development, then it would have to meet those setbacks and lot sizes.
POD gives it some variable.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, other questions?
I guess I got one thing, so, yeah, Claire, not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but can you explain again how it works with Met Council and like the density, stuff, like if you were to, I know this isn't really what some people in Credit River want, but, if you do higher density there, you can do a lot lower density in a lot more of the rest of the city.
Mhm.
Can you kind of explain how that works again?
Like the process of the amendment or?
Just how it works with Met Council and the whole density.
Yeah, so Met Council sets
Your units, projected units every, through the comp plan
Mhm.
process. As needs and developments come in, that's why the amendment process is there. As part of this, they're gonna do a review of this is kind of on the sewer side, just since this is a unique and kind of one-off situation, as the applicant has mentioned. They're gonna have to do a review on their regional connector to ensure that it can handle the 300 units. That's kind of what we were told. That's the first step. And then on the density side of things, even though it's guided currently as urban expansion reserve, it wasn't planned for that. It was further on. So from my interpretation of the conversations we've had with Met Council staff is that this isn't necessarily an out of line type of request from their perspective.
So just to build on that question a little bit, does this allow, in the grand scheme, as we think about what's been set aside as urban expansion reserve and meeting those targets? Does that, how do we continue to factor in those calculations for what those expectations are? How does this either help or alter?
Sure. You asked it again. Sorry, I'm trying to follow.
I'll try and restate it.
Yeah.
As we think about, that whole area north of.
Yep.
21, County Road 60 has been designated as urban expansion
Yep.
reserve. And as we think about what Met Council is requiring for.
Could you speak up? Thank you.
Bring this a little closer, sorry about that. As we think about what that implication is, how does that help or what do we need to be thinking about as we go into the next comprehensive planning cycle for what it means for the rest of the urban expansion reserve?
Sure, like how it might affect how they may designate
Yes.
for your land use.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the only answer to that, really, a lot of the land use designations that they provide and density is surrounded around those interceptors and the connectors, because that is where the Met Council is provided with their land use sort of oversight, is through that they provide those utilities to the county metro areas. So that's gonna change, not just within the development that's happening in Credit River, but your surrounding neighbors and any other sort of public infrastructure projects that they're working on it. So this development in their eyes is really just a blank. Is the best answer I can give, just because there's so many factors that.
Yeah.
And as part of this, we are also gonna have a conversation with the planner that is in charge of the forecasting. That's actually our next. While the regional sewer study, well, those folks are looking at that, we're gonna be talking with the forecast person about that exact question. So I should have more information for you on that after
As
we
time
meet
goes
with him. Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about, there's capacity for bringing sewer to this development and perhaps this ghost plat, but thinking through how does this possibly change or alter the extension of sewer eventually coming down from Savage as has been planned? I wanted to build on that question, what you said a little bit, but also get your input.
I know that the city engineer is planning on reviewing the sewer, like kind of as part of this, the sewer study that I think was 2011 was done, didn't incorporate this part. And so I don't think it's necessarily going to change those plans. It might just have the connection. That's a better question for the city engineer or administrator.
Sure.
See it following some here and in hearing, so the impact, this doesn't impact the two main trunk lines that we have coming over from Savage. Requirements from the Met Council is 1,000 acres per. And so we have well over that still. If we take this acreage out and connect it to Lakeville, we still have the required acreage for the two connectors coming across from Savage that the Met Council would purchase. And since the Met Council is not purchasing anything here to bring over kind of the main trunk line into the city, that 1,000 acre requirement is not being triggered by this interconnection with Lakeville.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So, lots of questions related to utilities, to access and thinking about transportation infrastructure. In terms of some of the things that are on my mind, you've already brought up the fact that there's probably enough traffic warranted to consider changing signaling or structure on 185th. There are a lot of us out here who can remember when that was a gravel road, which is hard to even fathom at this point. But as I'm contemplating, some of the things that are on my mind about the development and what it means for the greater community, that safe ingress egress is obviously very important. And it would be good to know, what's on Scott County and Dakota County's minds. It sounds like the intersection further to the west would only be right in, right out, which may alleviate some of those concerns. It sounds like that's being anticipated right now as more of a secondary as opposed to a primary entrance into the neighborhood.
That's it. Chair, yes, that is true. No one asked us to put that. But when you look at it, if you go north on Judicial Road, it really takes you through a bunch of neighborhoods and it's not really a great access. So rather than have all the traffic come out, a potential signal on 185th and Judicial Road to provide right in, right out opportunity we thought was beneficial. Now, we have not reviewed that with Scott County,
Mhm.
and we'll need to review that with Scott County. Typically, a right in, right out is not a big issue for them, especially when you have a median. So we think that that's a reasonable reliever for this specific development. Yes.
Lots of discussion about the natural environment, with the amenities of the trail and the large wooded area. Are those going to be owned by the association in this plan?
Presently, they would be owned by the association. From our review of your comp plan, there is not a designated park in this area. So our view is that there would be association owned. There also has been some conversation with regards to the northerly property, is maybe that's added to Murphy-Hanahan Park, rather than being open space specific to this development. We've not had that conversation. We don't know what their appetite is for adding additional parkland to that park. So, but that's something that we would be open to doing. Yes. So, yeah.
Looking. Does anybody else have any other questions at the moment?
Well, I think it's one of the questions that you had about, how would this affect the number of requirements? I was thinking that I always heard the term number of flushes, that's like per acre or something like that. And I always heard there was something just a number, 3 flushes per acre for the Northern Park Credit River. And if we had higher density someplace else, that kind of relieved the pressure to have that number in other acreages. And so I think part of your question was, would something with this amount of density kind of relieve the need and pressure for that number of flushes in other parts of Northern Credit River? And so I'm not sure if we got an answer to that, other than this is kind of an anomaly to what the 2040 plan is, because of the hookups we have now with Lakeville. So I'm just thinking down the road with the 2050 plan, I guess, when that comes up in a couple of years. But what we're doing now, is that going to help make things a little easier for density for the other parts of Northern Credit River?
The density requirement is 3 homes per acre.
Mhm.
And that is what this is looking at, is 3 homes per acre. So it's not giving us extra over and above density. With the ghost plant, you're at
Well, the ghost part
Yeah,
kind of covers
so-
that.
Yeah, so that puts us at the 3 homes per acre that we need to make it. So we're not by doing this is kind of level, so it's not going to impact future planning in the rest of the area of Credit River, because it's meeting that requirement. If you only had 2 homes per acre, then we would have to add more density somewhere else to make up for it. So this area here is meeting that requirement, so it won't impact what we're doing with the rest of the area when we start looking at that design and those kind of that density number evaluation as we look at the 2050 comp plan.
And that's what we're kind of.
Yeah. through this series of questions. I think that's been one of our central themes this evening, so thank you for that. I know. Are there any other, I have one other question right now. Are there any others from the other planning commission members at this time?
Just one, so yeah. And I mean, it looks well thought out. I mean, you guys look to be a quality company. I know I've been in some of your other neighborhoods, but it seems like the housing market is just gangbusters and obviously Credit River is one spot that people are, I assume, are looking to develop and you guys are moving forward because you feel confident. But just because it has been so hot for so long and you're talking about a 6-year build out, obviously you don't know how fast that's going to go until you start. Just at the risk of not pulling a new Prague, about a decade and a half ago and having lots sit there for 10 years. I mean, how do you develop it so we wouldn't see that happen? And is the city at risk if it goes much, much slower than you're anticipating, or don't you see that?
Yeah, first of all the improvements that are being done here are being financed privately.
Yeah.
So every dollar is going into this development is not coming from the city, it's coming from us, okay? And so from a financial perspective, there is no additional risk. I would say we're looking at 2 phases right now. If we forecast that the market's going to change significantly, we may have 4 phases, we may have 6 phases. You know, it may be that this development, you know, goes slower. But we don't see that as being an issue. We have a fairly financially strong organization. That's why I put that one sort of chart in there. It shows all the things that we are involved in. And so I'm not concerned about that. I will say it is like Spirit of Brandon Farms. We'll give that as a great example. That development opened exactly the right time, like 2007, right? Which we all know what happened the years following 2007. The family, the Ennebeck family or Tradition Development. I mean, we stuck by all the architectural standards that we originally had. We designed and built the streets exactly how the streetscape standards were. And we could have easily sold off portions of that to sort of relieve the pain and sort of went away from what our mission was originally in that project. And so that was a perfect example. We weathered the storm. We went through that project exactly when the new Pragues or whatever other examples you want to give. That happened during that time frame. And so Spirit's a great example of that start to finish. We finished it exactly what the expectations of the city were, and our expectations were from the beginning.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
I think the one last question that I have is just, you know, we're still new to the planned unit development concept and saw staff's notes about the, you know, right of way, some other things. If we were to deviate from what has been set out in R1 for setback for right of way, does that set a precedent for future development?
No, every PUD is unique based on, you know, what is proposed and the layout, you know, the topography of the land, the layout of the property, the surrounding areas. So no, the PUDs don't set any sort of precedent.
Okay. Anybody else with other questions? Seeing none, thank you. I'm sorry, at this time, there is no public hearing this evening. There'll be. I'm sorry, I meant to the commissioners. I'm so sorry for the lack of clarity there. But if there are no other questions from commission members, I do want to remind the public, there will be opportunities for questions and public input as this process goes forward, if it does proceed. And we would invite you to come and be part of those meetings and take time to get your questions answered. This was really just intended to be an opportunity for us to gather some initial information and for the developer to get some initial input. And rest assured, this process is transparent. It will be here. There will be opportunities for input going forward. So I appreciate that.
You know of another meeting scheduled yet? For this and everything?
Would you like to?
The city council will be hearing this and providing their feedback and concepts and thoughts on the concept plan at their council meeting on Monday night. This Monday. Yes. And that's where the concept plan kind of ends, and then we'll see where the developers go and what kind of moves forward from there. But the city council will have it on their agenda for Monday evening for them to look at the concept plan. Is that why we can ask questions or not? That is not a public piece either. That one is just for the council members, and you can share thoughts that you may have by emailing the council members at that point or before Monday and share some thoughts with them on the concept, but it is just for the council to hear and provide some feedback as well to the developer.
So if the time frame is in the fall that they want to get started, when about would those public hearings be? Approximately.
It's all hard to tell. It's all gauged by when we start receiving applications. And that doesn't mean that the developer doesn't do some other stuff, but in between, the public hearings are set when applications come in and we have complete applications and we start doing reviews of them. So at this point in time, those timelines are unknown.
Got a quick question as far as public notice. Now, I noticed that a couple of our local newspapers have folded. And in order to make a public notice, I noticed they would go into like the Fire Lake American. What would be the source of public notices that people could see that a hearing is available or something like that? Is there another means of other than, I know the Fire Lake American is folded.
The Prior Lake American has closed down. The city did have 2 official newspapers. We're only required to have 1, but we had 2. So we still have the Lakeville Sun as our official newspaper. In addition, when we send out notices, and do like notices of public hearings and so forth, if you're on our email distribution list, you'll get the notice emailed to you because we do send them out that way. And then we are working on getting them posted on our website. So, but they do, the easiest way is be signed up for the email bulletins that we send out from the city, and you'll get notices sent emailed directly to you.
Lakeville Sun is just as the print newspaper down.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. With there being no other business before the planning commission this evening, may I get a motion to adjourn?
That we adjourn?
I have a motion. Do I have a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, we are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.